I've had quite a few interesting questions recently about Social Security disability, and I think they would benefit most people applying for disability. So here goes. Hello, I'm John Foster. I'm a medical doctor who does Social Security disability exams, and as I always say, everything I say reflects my own opinions based on my own experience and study, and not the opinions of the Social Security Administration or any other medical body. Now, the first question was, can you apply for Social Security disability if you're age 60 and above? And the answer is absolutely yes. Every day that I do disability exams, I see people in their 60s. And you may be interested to know that it's easiest to get approved if you're age 60 or above. As a general rule, the older you are, the easier it is to get approved. And this begins at age 50, gets easier at 55, and gets even easier at age 60. The only thing to know is that Social Security transfers people from Social Security disability income to Social Security retirement income when they reach their full retirement age, which is age 67 for almost everyone. So you can't apply for disability if you're at your full retirement age or over. But if you're younger than that and in your 60s and have become disabled and can't work, you absolutely should apply for Social Security disability. The next question I got was, person has a condition that they find disabling, but it's not in Social Security's listing of impairments, and they want to know if it's possible for them to be approved. And the answer is yes. Social Security's listing of impairments is a very long online resource that lists all of the common and some of the uncommon diseases and conditions that people get approved for disability for. If you meet the qualifications for a listing, that's called meeting a listing. And if you meet a listing, you're done. You get approved for disability. The thing is, the condition has to be quite severe to meet a listing. Most people who get approved for Social Security disability don't meet a listing. They don't have one condition that's very severe. They usually have multiple conditions, none of which meet a listing by themselves, but when added up all together, Social Security determines that that's enough to approve someone for disability. The particular thing that the person was concerned about was narcolepsy, which is a very interesting condition and amazing to see if you've ever seen it. It's a condition where a person suddenly and without warning falls asleep, even though they don't feel tired. And they're asleep for several minutes, and then they suddenly wake up, and they're often unaware that they fell asleep. And you can imagine it would be very difficult and sometimes dangerous to do certain jobs when you have repeated episodes of sudden loss of consciousness. And what you would do here would be use the same sort of requirements for someone with epilepsy. In epilepsy, a person suddenly loses consciousness. Unlike narcolepsy, they tend to shake and jerk and have a seizure. But it's the sudden, unpredictable loss of consciousness that can qualify people for disability. In everything that's episodic, that comes and goes, I recommend that before you apply, that you keep a diary for a couple of weeks or months and record every time that the disabling event occurs. That will be much more helpful than saying, well, it happens often or it happens about 2 to 3 times a week. If you apply for disability and you're denied and you appeal, you may wind up in administrative law court and appearing before an administrative law judge whose job it is to approve or deny disability. And so I suggest everyone who's applying, imagine that they're presenting their case, their evidence before a judge. And judges like evidence, and they really like written evidence and precise evidence. So keeping a diary can be the difference between getting approved and being denied. The third question, a person had several questions. They had psychiatric problems and they wanted to know about applying for psychiatric disability. And you certainly can get approved for disability based on psychiatric problems. However, it's fairly difficult because the problems must be severe. Now, I have a saying that I came up with, which is that everything that's bad for the patient is good for their disability claim. It sounds kind of unpleasant, but that's the fact. So here are the sorts of things that can help get a psychiatric disability application approved. I'm not saying these are good things or that I would wish them on anybody. These are simply the facts. Number one, are you seeing a psychiatrist regularly? Number two, is the psychiatrist prescribing your medication? Social Security tends to give more credence towards psychiatric medication prescribed by a psychiatrist than prescribed by a family doctor or internist. Have you had admissions to a psychiatric hospital or the psychiatric ward of a general hospital? Has there been any suicide attempts? And finally, is there a history of psychosis, which medically means the person is out of touch with reality? In colloquial speech, we would say that the person is insane. The fourth question is a good one. It's, can you be denied for not taking medicine prescribed for the condition for which you're claiming disability? And the answer is, it depends. First, the first question is, would these medicines help, and might you be able to work if you took them? If they don't help and you wouldn't be able to work, obviously you're not going to be denied if you don't take them. The second question is, why don't you take them? And here you need to have a reasonable, sensible reason. If you say, I don't take my prescribed medication because I just don't like taking medication, that's not going to help your disability application. If you say something like, I've tried the medication and it's caused very unpleasant side effects, or it's an addictive medication and I'm afraid of getting addicted. I have a friend or relative who got addicted to prescription medicine and wound up in very bad trouble. Or if the medicine is very expensive and you're out of money and you can't afford it. Those are all the sorts of reasonable reasons for not taking the medication. Again, imagine that you're in court testifying before a judge. You want to give testimony that the judge would find reasonable and believable. The fifth question was from a person who's a veteran and is receiving VA disability, and they wanted to know, is it possible to receive Social Security disability also? And again, the answer is yes. Something to keep in mind, Social Security doesn't rely on the determination of disability by any other agency, whether that's the Veterans Administration or your employers, workmen's compensation, physicians, etc. They make their own decision. So they may or may not decide that someone who is considered 100% disabled by the VA is disabled according to the Social Security Administration. What Social Security does rely on is medical records from the VA. They will request your VA medical records and they will review them looking for evidence that you're disabled. The sixth and final question, I've had multiple requests, people asking, can I take on new patients in my private practice? Can I review a person's disability case? And can I do a consultative examination for someone, a Social Security disability exam for someone? And unfortunately, I have to say the answer to all of the questions is no. I'm old and I'm partly retired. Currently, I do Social Security disability exams, and I run a class, a fitness class for cage fighters, and that's all the work I do. I don't have a private practice now. If you want your case reviewed, the easiest and best way is to consult a Social Security disability attorney. They can almost always tell you if you have a winning case or not. If you're scheduled for a consultative examination, you cannot choose your doctor. Social Security will choose which doctor will do the exam, and you have to go to the doctor Social Security chooses. However, you can ask your personal doctor or doctors to fill out a functional assessment for you, and that can be very helpful in getting disability approved. I've done a video on that. I'll leave a link in the description to this video below. Just keep in mind two things. Number one, your doctor is not required to fill out a functional assessment on you. If they do, it's a favor to you. And number two, I got my MD degree on May the 5th, 1978, and since then I have not met a single doctor who enjoys doing paperwork. So if you want a functional assessment filled out, ask nicely. Don't toss it on the doctor's desk and say, you have to fill this out. That won't go well. Well, I hope you found this helpful. Generally, I put out one disability-related video every Friday if you want to subscribe to my channel. And as always, remember, if it happens, it's possible. Here, here's a great, here's a great. Hey, hey.